So, Spence Jr versus Crawford. That's the fight that needs to happen. Now, I think it's WBA mandated that Sean Porter fight Bud Crawford, and it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a good fight. Anytime you get Sean Porter in a ring with an elite level fighter, you know you're getting a fucking great fight. You got to take your hat off to Sean Porter. I mean, what a dedicated professional. This guy, you got to love this guy. I mean, I don't care. This guy is the consummate worker. I'm a worker. I'm a hustler. I hustle. I work on cars. I fix cars. I'm a certified Florida court interpreter. If I can sell you an insurance, I'll sell you an insurance. I hustle. And shit, we need more people with Sean Porter's work ethic, because he is just tireless, and he works and works and perfects his craft and comes back, and you got to kill the man to beat him, literally. You saw it. I think even with the knockdown, I think he either beat Spence Jr. or that was a draw. I was scoring the fight. I was watching it, and I think he either beat Errol Spence Jr. or it was a draw. He hustled. He'll hustle you. That's the thing. He hustles. He goes in there and he'll give angles, and he'll take, even if you don't give him something, he'll take it from you, and he'll come back and he'll take punches while he's doing it. And you think you can upper him with that style that he does. He goes really low, and he'll just, all you do is land him punching on his forearms, and right there he'll come overhand, left or right. He doesn't care. He'll take it, and so Spence Jr. versus Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford will knock Spence Jr. out. Plain and simple. Spence is a one-dimensional fighter. He doesn't switch and hit. Now, like I've said in videos before, Errol Spence Jr. is the Tim Duncan of boxing. He is Mr. Fundamentals and Mr. Hustle, Mr. Bullheaded. I'm going to get my shots in and run you over. And he does that. But you can't do that against Errol Spence Jr. You can't. You can't do that. I'm sorry, because against Bud Crawford. If you fight one-dimensional against Bud Crawford, he will knock your ass out. I don't care how big you are. Ask Jose Benavidez, and Jose Benavidez can fight. He's been fighting forever. He's been fighting his bigger brother. He's been fighting his bigger brother when his bigger brother was fucking heavyweight. And Jose Benavidez is no fucking slouch. Now, granted, when he fought Bud Crawford, he had been shot in the leg before, and we saw that, he didn't have he wasn't 100% there, but he still was dangerous. I mean, he landed against Crawford. Jose Benavidez, when he fought him, he landed, and Crawford took those punches and came back and knocked him out. And it's a big dude to knock out. He can take some punches. He knocked him out. And Spence Jr., he's bullheaded. He's stubborn. Now that is what get you knocked out against Bud Crawford. You stubborn against him, he'll make you regret it. He lands punches in a way that you think, oh, this punch ain't gonna hurt me. He'll knock you out with that punch. I don't know if you saw the punch he landed against Kell Brook that fucked him all up and threw him against the ropes. That punch didn't look like much, but it had leverage, and Brook was coming in, and he twisted it at the last moment. That was a slash, you know, loop slash right hook slash hook. It was a beautiful punch, thrown with leverage, and it was short and timed. So, you know, people think, oh, it's going to be a great fight. Listen to me. The perfect fighter for Terence Crawford to show his boxing IQ is Errol Spence Jr. because he is a one-dimensional fighter, and I'm talking about Errol Spence Jr. and he's bullheaded. He is stubborn. You fight Terence Crawford stubborn, you get your ass beat. It's a perfect fighter, you know, for Terence Crawford to show the world how good he is. So, do I think Terence Crawford's going to knock Sean Porter out? No. I think it's going to be a decision. But he could. He could get him in trouble. I don't think anybody can knock Sean Porter out. I mean, everybody can get knocked out, but it's very unlikely because even though Sean Porter is one of the, you know, most resilient, dogged fighters that you've ever seen, he is smart about it. He doesn't run into it. You know, if he sees that he gets hurt, even when he gets hurt, he'll come at you and he'll give you angles and he'll keep his composure. He's not going to close his eyes and bite on his mouthpiece and start throwing crazy punches. You'll never see that. He is controlled aggression and smart, Sean Porter. Do I think he can beat Crawford? It would have to be the best night of his life. I think Sean Porter has a better chance of beating Terence Crawford than Errol Spence Jr. has a chance of beating Bud Crawford. Why? Because Sean Porter is more cerebral. It's a head game, man. You know, you understand? If you're bullheaded, I'm bullheaded. I fight bullheaded up until I start getting clocked. Pop, 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 pop. And then I have to gather my composure, and I come back. You know, some people, you hit them and they hit back, and even if they get knocked out, you can't do that. You have to remain composed. You have to use your brain. It's like life, you know. You have to regroup. Okay. So when you start, you know, reassessing. And then in between those punches, when that guy lands the 3-4 punch combination on you, you're still on your feet. You know, in between those punches, he gathers a little bit more confidence. And if he gets overconfidence, he can get hurt. Because in between those punches, if you land just one good punch and he's coming in, you can fuck him up. So, you know, it's going to be a great fight. Crawford versus Porter. When, and it's going to happen, when Bud Crawford fights Errol Spence Jr., and I wish Errol Spence a speedy recovery from his injury in his eye. When that happens, you're going to see how good Terence Crawford really is. He's going to come into his own. He thrives on beating big names. He's going to dismantle. And people say, you suck at making predictions. Hey, guess what? I stand by them. Even when I lose, hey, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. All right? So I'm going to borrow that from Tony Montana. So that's the fight that everybody needs to see. And that's going to be a huge fight. Terence Crawford against Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford going to clean Errol Spence Jr.'s clock. Put him to shame. It's coming.